Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Be Yourself Unapologetically podcast. I'm Becca, your host. Now, today I was going to do my first video podcast, but I just realised that I'm just so I decided to just carry on doing it the way that I know how. So tonight we're going to talk about when you finally get accepted for that ECHP assessment, the Educational and Healthcare Need Assessment. Now, some of us have been fighting to get to this point for a long time. After many refusals, when you finally get that, yes, we will assess. So, what comes after that? So, we're talking directly to the parents whose children can't get through the school gates because their nervous system is screaming danger at the school environment. Your local authority has finally agreed to carry out an education, health and care needs assessment. You've got that yes, email or letter. But now you're thinking, what actually happens next? How do I make sure they understand school-based anxiety? How do I use the right language so SENA actually listens? And what are my rights when my child still can't attend school? That's what this whole episode is about. As always, this is information, not individual legal advice. For case-specific support, you'll want to look at specialist services like IPSIA, Sendias, or a Send solicitor. So as usual, make yourself a cup of tea, take a deep breath, and let's walk through this step by step. So, when the local authority agrees to assess, and what that really means. When the local authority says, we agree to carry out an EHC needs assessment, they've accepted two things in law. Your child has or may have special educational needs. They may need special educational provision beyond what a normal mainstream school can reasonably provide from its own resources. From that point, a legal clock starts ticking. Across England, the whole EHC needs assessment and planning process should normally take no more than 20 weeks from the date the request was received, right through to the final EHCP being issued. Very roughly, that looks like this. Weeks 1 to 6 decide whether to assess, but you're past this stage and they've said yes. Week 7 to 16 is the assessment phase, gathering advice from professionals, your views and your child's views. Week 16 to 20, the LA decides whether to issue an EHCP, sends you a draft, you have time to comment, and then they issue the final plan. So if you're sitting there thinking nothing seems to be happening, you can hold the local authority to those statutory timescales unless one of the limited legal exemptions applies. So what actually happens during the assessment phase? Once they've agreed, the local authority can't just vaguely have a look and call it done. The law says they must seek specific information and advice. During an EHC needs assessment, the local authority must gather advice on your child's needs, the provision required to meet those needs, the outcomes your child could reasonably be expected to achieve with the right support. They have to ask for advice from at least you as the parent, the school or most recent education provider, a health professional, an educational psychologist, social care, and any other person they think is appropriate, and anyone you reasonably request they seek advice from. That last part is powerful. It means you can say things like, please seek advice from CAMS, our clinical psychologist, our occupational therapist, our speech and language therapist, under Regulation 61H of the SEND regulations. You don't need a diagnosis before this can happen. An assessment looks at needs and not the labels. So let's name what's actually happening. School-based anxiety and EBSA. For many families, the phrase that actually matches your reality is emotionally based school avoidance or emotionally based school non-attendance, EBSA or EBSNA. EBSA describes pupils who have difficulty attending school because of emotional factors, with anxiety being a key feature. It is distinct from truancy or won't go. It is more like can't go because of high distress. When you write or speak to SENA, you might say things like, my child has emotionally based school avoidance linked directly to the school environment. This is not a behaviour choice, it is anxiety-driven school-based distress. Attempts to force attendance increase anxiety, trigger shutdowns or meltdowns, and worsen their mental health. The Department for Education's own guidance on mental health and attendance recognises that social, emotional and mental health issues can heavily affect attendance and that schools and local authorities must respond sensitively. You're not making excuses, you are accurately describing a health-based barrier to education. So the 4 areas of SEND and where school-based anxiety fits. Under the SEND Code of Practice, there are 4 broad areas of need. Communication and interaction, cognition and learning, social, emotional and mental health, SEMH, sensory and or physical needs. Most real children sit in more than one of these areas. The Code of Practice actually says the purpose of identification is to work out what action to take, not to squeeze a child into a single box. Let's translate this into language you can use in your forms and emails. Communication and interaction. Think autism, social communication difficulties, language processing, understanding social rules. You might write, my named child has communication and interaction needs that affect how they understand language, social cues, and the fast-moving demands of the classroom. They need information broken down, extra processing time, and explicit teaching of social expectations. Cognition and learning. This is about how a child learns, think and processes information. It covers specific learning difficulties like dyslexia as well as general learning difficulties. You might write, the named child has cognition and learning needs, including slow processing speed and working memory difficulties. They require overlearning, repetition and concrete examples to secure new learning. Then there's social, emotional and mental health, SEMH. This is where school-based anxiety sits. You might write, named child has significant social, emotional and mental health needs, including clinically significant anxiety, directly to the school environment. When exposed to school, they experience panic, physical symptoms and distress, leading to emotionally based school avoidance. You can add these SEMH needs make it impossible for a named child to attend school regularly without intensive specialist support and a different approach to education. Sensory and or physical needs. This might be sensory processing difficulties, hypersensitivity to noise, light, touch or physical disability. You might write, the named child has sensory processing needs, including hypersensitivity to noise, crowded spaces and unpredictable movement. The standard school environment overwhelms their nervous system and feeds into their school-based anxiety. When you speak to SENA, you are not just saying they're anxious, you are mapping the anxiety onto these 4 legal areas of SEND, which helps professionals see that this is a special education need and not behaviour. Your child is out of school, so what are the local authorities' duties right now? It's a bit different for me because my daughter is at a private school. But If your child is a local authority school, while the assessment is going on, your child still needs an education. There's a specific legal duty in Section 19 of the Education Act 1996. It says local authorities must arrange suitable education for children of compulsory school age who, because of illness, exclusion or otherwise, cannot attend school. Government guidance on children unable to attend school because of health needs makes clear this includes mental health difficulties, not just physical illness. Local authorities must have regard to this guidance when arranging provision. So you can say to SENA or to the local authority's Education, Welfare, Medical Tuition team, my child is currently unable to attend school due to health needs, specifically severe anxiety related to the school environment. Under Section 19 of the Education Act and the Department of Education guidance on children who cannot attend school because of health needs, I am requesting suitable alternative education while the EHC needs assessment is taking place. Suitable education might mean medical tuition service, home tuition, part-time, very carefully planned reintegration, online provision, or where appropriate, moving straight towards an alternative type of placement, such as a special school or education otherwise than that school packages via the ECHP process. You are not asking for a favour, you are pointing to an existing statutory duty. Using the right language in your parental advice. At some point, the LA will invite you to submit your parental views for the assessment. This is your chance to tell the story clearly, using the language that the system understands. Here are some phrases you can adapt. The named child has special educational needs in the areas of communication and interaction, cognition and learning, social, emotional and mental health, and sensory processing. These needs are not being met in a mainstream school environment. The named child experiences emotionally based school avoidance. Their anxiety is triggered by specific aspects of the school environment, including noise, unpredictability, social demands, and previous traumatic experiences in school. Attempts to enforce attendance through sanctions, threats, or attendance procedures have escalated named child's anxiety and caused deterioration in their mental health. A trauma-informed relational approach is required. Named child is currently unable to access school. Their attendance difficulty is health-based, not a choice, and should not be recorded or treated as truancy. You can also keep a daily log of attempts to attend, anxiety levels, meltdowns, shutdowns, and the impact on family life. Gather letters from CAMS, GPs, psychologists, or other professionals supporting the picture of school-based anxiety and EBSA. Ask explicitly for social care to look at the impact on family and for health to contribute to the plan. Equality Act, reasonable adjustments and discrimination. Alongside the SEND framework, there is the Equality Act 2010. If your child's anxiety and other difficulties meet the legal definition of a disability, the school and local authority have a duty to make reasonable adjustments so they are not placed at a substantial disadvantage compared to pupils who are not disabled. Reasonable adjustments might include flexible timetables, online learning, a separate quiet entrance, an anxiety-friendly transition plan, reduced demands, sensory adaptations, or a safe base in school. So you might write, under the Equality Act 2010, my child is a disabled pupil due to their long-term substantial difficulties with social, emotional and mental health. I am asking the school to make reasonable adjustments to avoid substantial disadvantage, including list your recent changes. In this, there is another way of signalling that this is not a parenting failure or a naughty child. It is a rights issue. When the assessment is finished, EHCP or no EHCP. After all the evidence is gathered, the LA has to decide whether to issue an EHCP. If they decide to issue a plan, they will send you a draft. Here is what you do with it. Check section B, needs. Does it clearly describe school-based anxiety, EBSA, sensory needs and their impact on attendance and learning? Check section F, special educational provision. Is the support specific, quantified and clear? How many hours, what type of therapy delivered, by whom and how often? Check section 1, placement. It's section I. Is the named school or type of setting actually able to meet your child's needs? In law, once special educational provision is written into section F of an EHCP, the local authority has an absolute duty to secure that provision. So the words you fight for in the plan matter. Vague phrases like access to or opportunities for are hard to enforce. Concrete phrases like named child will receive one-to-one teaching for maths 4 times per week for 45 minutes delivered by a qualified teacher are enforceable. You usually have 15 days to comment on the draft and request amendments and a particular school or type of placement. If the LA decides not to issue an EHCP at the end of the assessment, you have a right of appeal to the SEND Tribunal. Segment 9. Your rights and your power as a parent. Let's pull your core rights together in one place. You have the right to request an EHC needs assessment yourself at any time, regardless of whether the school agrees. Be involved throughout the assessment, including giving your written views and your child's views. Ask the LA to seek advice from named types of professionals such as CAMS, occupational therapists, SALT, or a specialist in EBSA. Expect the process to be completed within 20 weeks in most cases. Appeal if the LA refuses to assess, refuses to issue a plan, or if you disagree with the contents of the final ECHP. Insist that the special educational provision in section F is actually delivered using complaints procedures or legal routes if necessary. Expect suitable alternative education while your child is out of school because of health needs, including mental health. Ask for reasonable adjustments under the Equality Act so your child is not put at a substantial disadvantage because of their disability. You are not being awkward, you are exercising rights that exist because families like yours fought for them. A moment for you. Before we finish, I want to talk to you, not the law. Having a child with school-based anxiety or EBSA is exhausting and heartbreaking. You watch other children head off with their bags and their world of friends, and your child is at home, drained by the simple idea of walking through the school gate. You might be questioning yourself. Did I cause this? Should I have pushed harder? Are they falling behind forever? But please hear this. You did not cause a nervous system that goes into survival mode in certain environments. What you are doing is fighting for a safer, more suitable way for your child to learn, and that is an act of courage, not failure. Right now, your job is not to force your child into a building their body experiences as danger. Your job is to tell the story clearly, use the language the system understands. Hold the local authority and the school to their legal duties. And keep your relationship with your child at the centre, because no plan works if trust is shattered. So after the local authority agrees to assess, here's your action list in plain language. Mark the dates. Put the 20-week deadline in your calendar. Gather evidence, diaries, professional letters, attendance records, your child's own words. Use the right terminology. EBSA, SEMH. The 4 areas of SEND, health-based attendance difficulty, disabled child under the Equality Act. Invoke section 19 if your child is getting little or no education while out of school. Check the draft ECHP carefully and push for clear, specific, quantified provision that genuinely addresses school-based anxiety and access to education. Appeal if you need to. Many parents win at tribunal simply by clearly evidencing needs and showing that mainstream as currently delivered cannot meet them. You are not alone in this. There are thousands of parents walking the same path, and there is a language, legal and emotional, that can help the system hear you. Thank you for listening today. If this episode has helped you understand what comes next after the local authority agrees to assess and how to talk about school-based anxiety in the language Senna understands, please share it with another parent who's at the beginning of this journey. You and your child deserve an education that doesn't come at the cost of their mental health. Until next time, take care of your nervous system as fiercely as you're trying to protect your child's.